Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nothing Left Unsaid. I am your host, Abigail, and today I'm very excited to have a very special guest in studio with us. We have Senator Analise Ortiz. She was just recently ranked as Arizona's top progressive legislator in Arizona by Progress Arizona. So really excited to chat with her on all of the things politics and Arizona today. Thank you so much for being here today, Senator Ortiz. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here.
So I wanted to start with the story behind your story, essentially what shaped your path into public service. Like, what was the moment that you went, I am going to run for office?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised here in Arizona, and growing up, I think I always recognized that there was so many injustices in the state. My parents are both educators, so I saw the way that our public schools were severely underfunded. I saw the way Sheriff Joe Arpaio was terrorizing communities during his reign, and it was really important to me to go into a career field where I felt would make a difference. And so I actually went to school to become a journalist. I wanted to kind of shine a light and investigate injustice. And some of my first assignments as a student reporter, I was sent to the Capitol to report on legislation. And that's where the light bulb kind of went off, that was the place where these decisions were being made and where people were being harmed. So after being a journalist for about 3.5 years, I just felt like there was so much change that had to happen, and I could not just report on it. I really wanted to get involved, especially after Trump was elected. I started working at the ACLU of Arizona, mainly working on criminal justice reform. And in 2022, after we had been through the pandemic, after we had been through rent increasing across the valley, all of these things compounding on top of each other, there were some openings in the legislature, and I figured if we don't have electeds who are going to actually fight for the people, then we need to come for those seats.
Absolutely. And we're super fortunate to have you in office. I think that your background as someone who worked in journalism and communications definitely shines through with how you make your Arizona politics so accessible to the public with your social media accounts. I think that's something that would really love to see more elected officials doing, and is definitely really beneficial to your constituents in your district and just Arizonans in general. So definitely that shows.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of take the veil off of what happens at the state capitol, especially because a lot of folks don't know what happens at the legislature. They might know a lot about their city council or about Congress, but the state legislature is kind of this place where it's often a black box, but it also is the place where so many decisions that really have a tangible impact on our lives are made. So I really see it as a duty to educate people on the legislature and how they can make a difference in the process as well.
Totally. Yeah, no, the legislature, for whatever reason, is, like you said, people tend to know a lot about what's going on in federal politics, typically some more about city council, but the legislature, for whatever reason, is kind of a mystery, and some people don't even really understand that it exists. So very, very, very important work, and thank you. We at Progress Arizona are getting ready to launch the 2025 Progress Scorecard, and you are our top scoring lawmaker in the entire legislature.
Thank you so much. It's a huge honor. I'm really excited about that.
We are so thrilled to be able to recognize you in that way, and we are wondering, what is your reaction to being ranked as Arizona's most progressive? It was no surprise to us, but...
Well, it's... aside from any kind of titles of who's progressive or who's moderate or who's a corporate Dem, I think the most important thing is working for the people and including the people in the decision-making process. And that's always been a key tenet of mine since before I ran for office. And I have been having monthly community office hours with my constituents who come out, and I'm keeping them informed about the bills moving through the legislature. And more often than not, they have opinions about these bills. And I try to stay true to what the majority of my constituency wants from me and expects from me. So there's no secret ingredient to being the person who got this score. It's just listening to people and voting accordingly.
It sounds like a good formula to me. Yeah, plain and simple. I think that we would be a lot better off if we had more legislators that approached their work like that. But certainly that makes sense. I think we've seen more and more like the term progressive and whatnot. It doesn't necessarily mean as much to people who are just trying to take care of their families and live a life where they can thrive.
Exactly.
One question I have is, you have made a lot of news lately, refusing to back down as Republicans have essentially flipped out over you sharing like vital community alerts about ICE activity in neighborhoods in your district. And it's really refreshing to see that at a time when so many Democrats seem to be silent. I think a lot of us are wondering like where the fuck they are. So when people like Senate President Warren Peterson or libs of TikTok or Charlie Kirk are trying to intimidate you, what keeps you grounded? What keeps you steady?
Yeah, it's been horrible dealing with some of the backlash from these far-right extremists. They have threatened my life and my personal security. It's horrific. There should be no place for political violence in a free and fair democracy. But what I keep centering are the people who are being hurt by these policies, because they are dealing with this on a huge level when it comes to their families being torn apart. And Republicans want us to remove the humanity from this situation. And we cannot do that. We have children who were walking to school, had their parents snatched up by ICE, and a masked agent then had to walk that little child to school.
Ugh, that is absolutely disgusting.
It's horrifying. And they want us to just completely close our eyes to these human rights abuses that are happening. So I try to remember the purpose of this is to protect people's humanity, their dignity, and to fight back against a fascist regime.
Absolutely. Super well said. Yeah. It's extremely disturbing to see just the way that ICE and the Trump regime are tearing apart communities, and they just expect us to close our eyes, close our blinds, but we absolutely cannot do that. So we very much appreciate you and others who are speaking up and sharing those alerts and using like your platform to do that. So, but I think also, especially like, it's crazy. It was like a few months ago where we had like actual assassinations of lawmakers, and like that was out of the news in like no time at all.
Yeah.
So like the danger is certainly real.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly the type of violence that Senate President Warren Peterson incited upon me when he called for me to be prosecuted for sharing publicly available information that ICE was outside of this school. And to do that without any regard to the fact that there are domestic terrorists out there who want to cause harm. And he was willing to just put me in harm's way. And it's really it's saddening to see that's where we are as a society right now. But we have to be vigilant about it, because for people like Melissa Hortman, who was shot and killed by a Trump supporter, she died, in my view, protecting her country and fighting for what's right. And we can't forget that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the time to get louder than ever is now, because we can't allow them to silence us.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want. They want to silence dissent. They want us to be afraid. They want us to not have our First Amendment right to free speech. It's horrific.
Absolutely. Yeah. So-called people who are, concerned with the Constitution and whatnot.
Oh, they do not
the
care about the Constitution.
Yeah, no, they absolutely don't. No. Kind of on a similar note, I guess, knowing that Republicans control the Arizona legislature, unfortunately, Senator Warren Peterson, and basically they can decide that they won't give Democrats bills the time of day, basically ever, if they don't want to. What is it like being a member of the minority caucus? And I guess like particularly, we can see with the progress scorecard, like there is a very big distinction between different Democrats. What is it like being in the minority caucus, particularly when, not even all Dems can be counted on to like hold the line?
It can be very frustrating serving in the Arizona state legislature, where there are a lot of politicians who are more concerned about their next election than about doing what's right. And I
Kirsten
was,
Cinema.
yeah, case in point. I was very familiar with that before I ran for office when I worked at the ACLU of Arizona on criminal justice reform, where we were often fighting Democrats who were trying to increase criminal penalties, expand the police state, the very same police state that we are now fighting against as we see Trump weaponizing the federal police in D.C., going after protesters and things of that nature.
Reaping what they've sown, literally.
Exactly. So it can be maddening, but what gives me hope and like the willingness to keep moving forward are organizations like Progress Arizona, who are willing to hold elected officials accountable, organizations like Lucha, who are there packing the gallery on days that we have very consequential votes and reminding elected officials, regardless of party, who they work for.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Particularly on like the note of like the Democrats who, you know, as I said, can't really be trusted to stand up for working people. I'm wondering, particularly regarding like, you know, we had the bill that was several bills that were meant to target like students and teachers who are protesting genocide. What would you say to those Democrats who voted against students and teachers' free speech amid these campus protests of the genocide that Israel is committing in Gaza?
Yeah, this was a horrible bill that ended up getting signed into law that essentially criminalizes free speech on campus and people that are demonstrating by doing sit-ins or other types of encampments, which has long been a tenet of community organizing, particularly on college campuses throughout consequential moments in
Absolutely.
United States history, like the Vietnam
long
War.
history.
Yeah, and it was really disheartening to see that bill be signed into law. I think
Extremely disappointing.
we really need to show the impact now that this has been passed of what it actually means for campus speech, for the way that it will chill free speech. That is one of the things that we really need to keep an eye on, is that they might not be rounding up protesters and throwing them in jail before your eyes, but when people are not willing to have a protest because they're so terrified that they could end up in jail, that is doing real damage to our democracy.
Totally.
So we have to highlight that, and we need student groups and student organizers to be speaking out and to be holding their administration on campus accountable as well when there are times that they are not treating certain student groups fairly. And we do often see that bias that impacts students who speak out in defense of Palestinian human rights. So we can't let this issue go away, and we have to stay vigilant, and we need to learn from those youth who are on the front lines of this movement.
Absolutely. The youth have the principles. That is definitely for sure. I think it's crazy too because it's so short-sighted, like of Democrats to support like legislation like this, because, you know, far be it from me to understand how you could not agree with students protesting genocide, but even if you don't, like, it could be your issue the next day that this type of legislation that is meant to silence speech could be attacking. So
exactly. And that was one of the things we tried to highlight, was this could jeopardize just basic voter registration on campus. And we know if you give the fascists an inch, they're going to take a mile.
absolutely.
And they're going to do that with this bill.
Totally. Yeah. Which is, as you've said many times, like, so important that everyone does not let them silence us now, because it's only going to get worse if we do. On a slightly different topic, I'm wondering, you know, housing is like top of mind for so many people, just the affordability crisis. I'm wondering, what do you see as like kind of just like a rough outline of the problems and the solutions to this issue in Arizona, and what is standing in the way of those solutions?
Yeah, well, this was one of the key reasons why I ran for office, because I cannot afford to own a home in the state where I currently govern. And
Same.
I had moved from apartment to apartment as my rent was being raised on me. And I really wanted to dig into this issue because my constituents in Maryvale and Glendale have some of the highest eviction rates in the entire county. And what I found was that this issue is very complex and there are multiple layers. But one of the big problems is that we simply do not have enough homes for the amount of people who continue to move here to Arizona. So we have a supply issue, and then we also have one of the weakest tenant protection laws in the entire nation. So I've been really proud to see Attorney General Chris Mays really dig in on this issue to protect renters and to use the little protections that tenants have on the books to go after the worst actors who are exploiting renters. But at the same time, we need to make sure we have more housing options. One of the bills we were able to pass that I was very proud to co-sponsor was a bill to legalize more missing middle housing. And what that means is you think about the housing spectrum. You have very large luxury corporate apartments, and then you have single family homes. We don't often see things in the middle, like townhomes, duplexes, casitas, things of that nature. And usually those types of home options are more affordable and also a way for people to kind of get their savings in order to be able to buy a single family home.
Totally.
And this law, although we passed it, we are still facing a lot of backlash, specifically from homeowners who live in historic neighborhoods who already get quite a bit of tax incentives and, again, actually own their homes, who essentially don't want lower income people to move into their community. And it's really frustrating. We all have to look inward and do a better job of recognizing that our communities are stronger when we have more diverse neighborhoods, when we have young professionals who can live in a duplex next door to someone else's historic home. We can have walkable neighborhoods. Imagine that.
That would be, I would love to see that.
That is really the vision that this bill was about. And the cities will be soon implementing their ordinances. I'm really looking forward to this opening the door to more housing options, especially for young people who deserve the same opportunities that our parents had to become homeowners and gain generational wealth.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. I always think about that meme that's like, oh, what were your parents doing at age 27, like buying a house and having a child, and me, like, I'm scrolling on TikTok and thinking about how I can probably never afford to buy a house. But
yeah, and it's not by accident, right? There
No.
were intentional policy choices that have been made for years and years around exclusionary zoning laws. Again, laws that make it harder for Black and brown people to become homeowners. These were all choices that were made along the line, and in order to undo them and allow people like you and I to be able to own homes, we have to be intentional about the policy changes we want to see.
totally agree with that. Yeah, I am always saying, like, everything that is going on right now, this was like, these are choices that not only have been made, but that we're like kind of actively making when we choose like not to push for these things and to like fight for these policies. So
Absolutely.
yeah, glad to hear that bill passed, though. That is some good news out of a, I'm sure, hellish legislative session.
Exactly. Yeah.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, I think I've said that like 3 times. What advice would you give to a 20-something first-time candidate?
Well, we absolutely need more young people to run. I was 27 when I ran for the first time. I did have people tell me that I should maybe run for school board first or run for something else, which school board is very important, don't get me wrong, but my expertise was in legislative advocacy. I wanted to run for legislature, and I knew I was qualified to do it. So make sure.
And you've proven yourself more than.
Thank you. Make sure you are running for the position that you truly love and want. The other thing I would say is to make sure you have the support of your community. You should be digging in deep with your community, organizing alongside people that have been in your community for decades, listening to their needs, because sometimes they're there might be people out there who think they're the best person for the job, but the community might disagree. And it's important to understand that before you launch your campaign. So really be intentional about going door to door, getting to know your neighbors, getting to really listen to their needs, and making sure you're the right person for the right job at the right time. And then don't be afraid to take the plunge and do it. Even if you don't win the first time, we need people to be challenging the status quo that we are in right now.
I mean, that seems to be basically, I mean, look at Zoran's campaign. It seems like what he was doing day in and day out was going and talking to people. And, you know, obviously it helps that he lives in New York City, unlike his opponent. But yeah, talking to people, it seems very simple, yet many seem to have a hard time doing that. So
yes, and knowing your community, and it's so important, and it's important to go beyond just the social media, right? Which I think it's important for young candidates to understand that you cannot win just using social media. You need to be in deep with your community, and you need to actually have policy plans that you are able to enact once you're there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the part that you had mentioned about, like, make sure that you're running for the job that you actually want, that makes a lot of sense. It really resonates with me. Because, why would you run for school board when you're, like, you've been at the legislature and have, like, a real vision for what you want to do there. So that is great advice. And I hope that somebody listening to it is able to take that to heart. Okay, so more of a fun question. So you represent Maryville and Glendale in the Arizona legislature. Do you have a favorite taco or coffee spot, or like where's your go-to after a long day at the Capitol?
Yeah, so there are so many good taco spots in my district. I am so fortunate for that reason. One place that's sticking out in my mind right now is La Poblanita, which is on 67th and Indian School, or I'm sorry, 75th Avenue and Indian School. So good. Their Al Pastor is my favorite. And the first Saturday of every month is our community coffees, which are at Homage Coffee in downtown Glendale.
Homage? What's the spelling on that?
Homage. However they say however you want to pronounce it.
Okay, cool.
Homage.
I love that. Thank you.
And they are a mom and pop coffee shop. It's vegan. They're amazing. They're such a sweet family, and they open their doors to us the first Saturday of every month, and I'm just so appreciative to that. Really good people.
That's really awesome. I love that you're having these like coffee town hall things. I think that I'm sure many folks really, really appreciate that right now, especially when it seems like a lot of elected officials are avoiding their constituents like the plague.
Yeah, it's been really successful. Every month it seems we have more people. We have regulars who come. We have new faces who come. And honestly, some of the overwhelming sentiment I'm getting is that people feel like Democrats are not doing enough in this moment. And I think that's really important feedback for the party to know, for me as an elected official to know. So every time I have those meetings, I'm reinvigorated and reinvested in this fight for justice and to make our party, be the party that we claim to be by bringing working class people back into our base.
For sure. That's really awesome. How long have you been doing the coffee chat things?
This whole year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. We need to see more of that. If anybody who's a legislator or anybody else listening, take note. Talk to your community. What is something about you that people might be surprised to learn outside of politics?
I play the guitar, but I'm not good. I was a musical theater nerd in high school, so I still am very much a theater nerd.
Like a card-carrying thespian? Or,
yes, I was. I had the thespian ring and everything.
We've had a lot of thespians on the pod.
Yeah?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, huge theater nerd. I love Stephen Sondheim, Into the Woods, and Sweeney Todd are probably my favorite musicals of all time.
Awesome. I definitely did not know that about you. So thank you for sharing. What is one thing that is giving you hope right now? And that's a hard question, I know.
It is a hard question because it is such a dark time. I find a lot of hope in the lengths our community is willing to go to take care of one another. And I think we're seeing that in so many ways. It has been such a heavy year, not just politically, but there's also been a lot of loss in our communities. A lot of people, amazing people, have died this year. And I've
Real
seen
fighters for
real
working
fighters
people.
for our cause.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of people like Libby Goff, Alfredo Gutierrez, champions that would show up in every space and be there for people. And in this moment of tremendous loss and darkness, I have seen such good in people being willing to show up and take care of one another in whatever way they can, even if they don't have money to give, being able to provide a meal or just sit there and talk to somebody.
Sorry.
And it's been really beautiful to see that. This administration wants to take away our willingness to care for each other.
Totally.
They want to turn us against each other. They have power in us isolating ourselves. So to stand up against that and to stand strong in community and to show up for one another is an act of resistance in itself.
Absolutely.
And that has been giving me hope.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. Was getting like chills as you were describing that. Yeah, it has really been amazing to see people like just put everything on the line for their neighbors and their family members and people that they don't even know. So yeah. Well, on one final note, this is the Nothing Left Unsaid podcast. Is there anything that you refuse to leave unsaid?
I think on that note of what we were just talking about is to just love each other radically. Don't be afraid to tell your friends you love them. Don't be afraid to reach out and offer people support, even if it might feel awkward.
Totally.
We need that right now, and you never know how much just a little act of kindness could make a difference for someone.
Absolutely. And they don't have that on the other side. Like, they do not have the love that we have for our people and our community. So
oh no, they can't even fathom it.
No, not
there's
at all.
Oftentimes my colleagues will say things, and I'm like, you can't fathom what it's like to know that a child in your community has had a parent snatched up by ICE and what that does to that little boy or girl and what it means to just be nice to them.
Would never cross their mind.
Right. And so that is a power that we have that we need to lean into.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and chatting with me. I really enjoyed our conversation and really appreciated your insights. And just, again, thank you for all the work that you do at the legislature and outside of the legislature.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And just so folks know, our next community coffee will be in October, not September, because my brother's getting married in September, and
congratulations to your family.
For him.
That's really exciting. Is the wedding anywhere? Is it in Arizona?
It'll be in Arizona. I'm just so excited for them, and it'll be a really beautiful, joyful day.
Thank you so much, Annalise. I appreciate it.
Thank you.